football. Oh, no. What was I doing? Wake up, stupid. Wake up. No.
No, I want an officer right undercover when I shoot you and get ready by Lee Rifle.
You'll shoot your eye out, kid.
You'll shoot your eye out. You'll shoot your eye out.
What is it?
I can't put my arms out. I triple dog dare you.
It's a major award. Fragile. It must be Italian.
Oh. Fudge.
Only I didn't say fudge.
Daddy's doing your Ralphie.
Next to me in the blackness lay my oiled blue steel beauty. The greatest Christmas gift I had ever received or would ever receive.
Merry Christmas. Welcome to this week's edition of the WayBack Movies Podcast, a show where we review the best and not so best of 80s and 90s cinema, because really, fuck the 2000s. My name is Steve, and with me on this crazy journey,
Justin.
Doctor.
Doctor.
And we're back for the holidays. Talking about probably the penultimate Christmas classic, I think.
Yep.
I think by most people's standards at this point. So, yeah. Without further ado, because it's all late and we have to do things like that, let's go way back to November 18th, 1983 for A Christmas Story. Okay, here we are in lovely 1983. I'm a year and a half. I don't know.
I'm sure you got something.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to remember it, but sure, it's entirely possible.
Tinker Toys.
Stuff. Yeah, maybe I got some. Well, no, I probably would have swallowed some Tinker Toys. I'm having trouble finding the notes. There we go.
Ship we have here.
Yeah, it's a little bit off today, more off than usual, so bear with me as I attempt to do this. So, like we said, A Christmas Story, November 18th, 1983, directed by Bob Clark. Yep, that one. Produced by Rene DuPont and Bob Clark, written by Gene Shepard, Lee Brown, and Bob Clark, based on In God We Trust, All Others Pay Cash by Gene Shepard. Produced and distributed by MGM Universal Artists. Box office of $20.6 million against a budget of $3.3 million. So still successful, but that number has probably quadrupled by this point at least, if not more. So the cast. Peter Billingsley is Ralphie Parker. Gene Shepard is Ralphie as an adult, or kind of the narrator, I guess.
Narrator.
Ian Petrella is Randy Parker. Melinda Dillon is the mother. Darren McGavin is the old man. Scott Schwartz is Flick. R.D. Rob is Schwartz. Zach Ward is Scott Farkas. Yeno Anaya is Grover Dill. Teddy Moore is Miss Shields. Jeff Gillen is Santa Claus, the most terrifying Santa Claus ever. Patty Johnson is the head elf, and Drew Hokever is male elf.
I'm surprised those two got credits.
They were the very last credits, but I insisted on putting them there.
No, yeah.
Because, they only had like a handful of lines each, but I love them. So, let's first talk about In God We Trust, All Others Must Pay Cash. Written by Gene Shepard, first published in October of 1966. Shepard was a radio talk show host telling stories. He later published a lot of these stories in Playboy magazine. Written over 3 years, In God We Trust is a collection of these stories being told through a narrator, making it appear as a novel. Being told through a narrative, making it appear as a novel, which Shepard is quite adamant about. There are 31 chapters in the book. The stories in the book are told by the fictional character Ralph, who has returned to his home of Homan as an adult, and remembers or relates these stories to his friend Flick, who runs the bar in which Ralphie spends the day. The longer stories are linked by 1 or 2 page chapters in which Ralph and Flick discuss their childhood or the present state of Homan. These exchanges trigger Ralph's reminiscence. Whether the stories are truth or fiction is not entirely clear. Shepard denied that he was merely remembering his childhood and repeatedly asserted in interviews that his stories were entirely fictional. Scholars Penelope Joan Fritzer and Bartholomew Bland agree that the stories are entirely fictional. Truth may lie somewhere in between. As Mark Scarrick for the Chicago Sun-Times put it, Homan doesn't really exist, but the sights, sounds, and events Mr. Shepard described happening there grew out of his experiences growing up in and around real-life Hammond, Indiana. Also, FYI, Shepard's middle name is Parker, and he has a younger brother named Randy. Some cleverness there. For the short stories or chapters, Duel in the Snow, the counterfeit Secret Circle member gets his message, My Old Man, and the Lashivas Special Award that heralded the birth of pop art, and Grover Dill and the Tasmanian Devil were used as the basis for A Christmas Story. Some phrases and small elements of these stories were also used for that film. Another short story used for the film, the grandstand passion play of Delbert and the Bumpus Hounds, appeared in Shepard's second novel, Wanda Hickey's Night of Golden Memories, published in 1971. The man knew how to write some shit. The 5 short stories that were used as the basis for A Christmas Story were collected under the title A Christmas Story and published as a standalone book in 2003. Other short stories in the book were used for the 1994 sequel. So the production of this flick. Bob Clark stated that he became interested in Shepard's work when he heard Flick's Tongue on the radio in 1968. Additional source material for the film, according to Clark, came from unpublished anecdotes that Shepard told live audiences on the college circuit. Shepard wrote the adaptation with Bob Clark and Lee Brown. Several subplots are incorporated into the body of the film based on other separate short stories by Shepard. Bob Clark said that he worked with writer Gene Shepard for nearly 10 years on the concept of A Christmas Story before the film was made. According to Peter Billingsley, not many major studios were interested in a story about a little boy in the 1940s who wanted a BB gun for Christmas. Billingsley said the studio agreed to make his film if Bob Clark agreed to make a horror film. Guess which one that was.
Yeesh.
See, 3 weeks ago. That and the success of this film Porky's, yep, that's the same Bob Clark, convinced the studio to make this.
What an eclectic career.
Isn't it, though? According to director Bob Clark, Jack Nicholson was given the script, and he was very interested in the role of the old man.
It's a major award.
It's a major award. It's fragile.
It must be Italian. Now I want to see that movie.
Yep. So
now
bad.
I want to see that movie.
However, Clark didn't learn of this until later, and the studio didn't want to pay Nicholson's fee anyway, which would have doubled the budget. Regardless, Clark said that Darren McGavin was still the better choice and was born to play the role. Agreed, but in an alternate universe, I need Jack Nicholson in this role.
Just for morbid curiosity.
Mm-hmm. He cast Melinda Dillon on the basis of a similar role in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Melinda Dillon basically played the mother in her entire career anyway, so it's not all that shocking.
It's a living.
She was kind of good at it. Some 8,000 actors auditioned for the role of Ralphie. He walked in, and he just had us from the beginning, Clark later recalled of Peter Billingsley, who was already a successful actor in commercials and co-hosting the TV series Real People. That's shocking. Clark initially wanted him for the role of Ralphie, but decided he was too obvious a choice, and auditioned many other young actors before realizing that Billingsley was the right choice after all.
It's usually what obviously means, Bob.
Mm-hmm. Usually. Sean Astin and Will Wheaton apparently auditioned for the role of Ralphie.
I can see Sean Astin doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Wheaton? I don't know.
Will Wheaton, he, literally, I think, a year later did Stand By Me, and it's just, he's a little too tall and lanky, I think. You gotta have kind of a round, pudgy type of kid. Where the hell am I? Okay. Ian Petrella was cast as Randy immediately before filming began. Teddy Moore had previously appeared in Clark's film Murder by Decree and was the only on-screen character from A Christmas Story who was played by the same actor in the sequel My Summer Story. Don't recommend that. The odd kid in line waiting to see Santa was cast because he was just that fucking weird in real life. So apparently, yeah, there's if you look at what's his nuts, if you look at Peter Billingsley, who looks really annoyed by that kid, apparently that's real because he's just like, this kid has been driving him nuts all day. The creepiest Santa ever, Jeff Gillen, was an old friend of Clark's who had been in one of his earliest films. The schoolyard bully, Scott Farkas, was played by Zach Ward, now an actor, writer, and director, who had actually been bullied himself while in elementary school. In 2017, he said he was surprised at the impact the role had over these years. I saw that I was ranked, as Christmas villains go, higher than the Grinch. That's amazing. That is fucking amazing.
Pat on the back.
Yeah, good on you. I like Zach Ward, so it's kind of cool to see him getting a little bit of praise. Shepard, Brown, and Clark have cameo appearances in the film. Shepard plays the man who directs Ralphie and Randy to go to the back of the Santa line at the department store. Brown, Shepard's wife in real life, plays the woman in the Santa line with Shepard. Clark plays Swede, the neighbor the old man talks to outside during the leg lamp scene. The film is set in Homan, Indiana, a fictionalized version of Shepard's hometown of Hammond, near Chicago. The name is derived from the Homan Avenue, a major street in downtown Hammond. Local references to the film include Warren G. Harding Elementary School and Cleveland Street, where Shepard spent his childhood, among others. Director Bob Clark repeatedly sent scouts to 20 cities before selecting Cleveland for exterior filming. Cleveland was chosen because of Higbee's department store in downtown Cleveland. Location scouts had been unsuccessful in finding a department store that was willing to be a part of the film. Higbee's vice president, Bruce Campbell... Really?
Not.
I never even wrote that. When I wrote that down, I didn't even see that. Not that Bruce Campbell.
Although that would be hilarious.
Right? The greatest chin in the world owned a department store. Agreed to take part in the project on the condition that he be allowed to edit the script for cursing. Ultimately, Higbee's was the stage for 3 scenes in the film. I don't know how he would get that, but okay. The opening scene, the parade scene, filmed just outside Higbee's in Public Square at 3 a.m. The parade was filmed at night because during the daytime in 1960, the 1960s Airview Tower and Federal Building were visible from the Public Square, as was the BP Tower, which was under construction at the time, and Ralphie and Randy's visit to see Santa. The store kept the Santa slide that was made for the film and was used several years after the film's release.
I did question why there was a nighttime Santa Claus parade.
Yeah, it was literally because everything else would just make it look like it wasn't the right time.
Fair enough.
Ralphie and Randy's visit to see Santa, which was filmed inside Higbee's... Yeah, no, I said that. Sorry, I went after that. My apologies. Higbee's became Dillard's in 1992 and closed for good in 2002. It is now home to Jack's Casino, which the most festive place in the world. Fucking casino. The exterior shots of the house and neighborhood were filmed at the Tremont section of Cleveland's west side. The house was used as the Parker home in these scenes, has been restored, reconfigured inside to match the soundstage interiors, and open to the public as a Christmas Story house. So you can go visit that. Several other locations were used. The school scenes were shot at the Victoria School in St. Catharines, Ontario. The Christmas tree parking scene was filmed in Toronto, Ontario, as was the soundstage filming of the interior shots of the Parker home. The tire changing scene was filmed at the foot of Cherry Street in Toronto. Several lake fighters are visible in the background, spending the winter in Toronto's port, which lends authenticity to the time of year when the film was produced. It's true, they're there now. Most of the snow was fake and created using detergent. Here we go, of course. The Red Ryder BB gun that was never in the exact configuration mentioned in the film. The Daisy Buck Jones model did have a compass and a, quote, thing which tells time, aka a sundial, in the stock. But these features were not included in the Red Ryder model. The compass and sundial were placed on Ralphie's BB gun, but the opposite side of the stock due to Peter Billingsley being left-handed. I didn't even know. I watched this movie thousands of times. I never knew or bothered to look up what a thing which told time is. Never bothered to look it up, and when I saw it, I was like, sundial. Of course, that makes perfect fucking sense. Why did I not think about it? Due to the film's popularity, the Daisy Rifle Company had started producing Red Ryder BB guns for sale during the Christmas season. It has become one of Daisy's best-selling rifles.
I can imagine.
Yep. You'll shoot your eye out. This warning is in fact a very common injury among children who own BB guns. Unlike full-size, bullet-loaded guns and rifles, where a bullet cannot ricochet unless it hits a certain type of hard surface and only at certain angles, the round BBs are often ricocheted off of targets with greater ease, and often compounded by the fact that kids stand too close with their intended targets, thus leaving them open to such injuries. Teddy Moore was 8 months pregnant by the time of filming. Miss Shields could not be shown as an unmarried mother in the 1940s, so the filmmakers padded the rest of her to match her belly, making her appear just stout. So, yeah. Well, they can't do it. In the 40s, you can't do that.
God forbid.
Well, no, because, back then, if you got pregnant, you clearly had a husband, so why are you working?
Yeah.
Welcome to the 40s, kids. I didn't make the rules, it just happened, alright? It's just history. For the scene in which Flick's tongue sticks to the flagpole, a hidden suction tube was placed to safely create the illusion that his tongue had frozen to the metal. Ironically, that actor went on to make porno films.
Well, I mean, good wisdom.
Yeah, so, Dude made porn for a while. And then after that, he tried to get back into real acting.